Imagine just for a moment that you have the power to step into a time machine. The doors slide open, and you're filled with anticipation. You set the dials, press a few buttons, and suddenly, the world around you begins to blur and shift. The air feels different, the colors change, and you sense that you're about to embark on an adventure unlike any other. The thrill of the unknown pulses through your veins as you prepare to leave behind everything familiar. You type in your destination, ancient Greece. In an instant, whoosh, the time machine whirs to life, and you're transported thousands of years into the past. The doors open and you step out into the heart of a bustling ancient Greek marketplace. The agora is alive with energy. Vendors shout in a language that's completely foreign to your ears, their voices rising above the clamor of the crowd. The air is thick with the scent of fresh bread, olives, and roasting meat, mingling with the earthy aroma of livestock and dust. People in flowing chitons and tunics brush past you, their faces sun-kissed and weathered by a life lived mostly outdoors. The sights, the smells, the sounds, they're all so vivid, so overwhelming, and so different from anything you've ever known. It's exhilarating, a true feast for the senses, and for a moment you're swept up in the excitement of it all. But before you get too comfortable, take a deep breath, and remember this. Life in ancient Greece was nothing like the world you just left behind. Beneath the surface of this vibrant scene lies a reality that would shock most modern people. The challenges and dangers of daily life were ever present, and survival was never guaranteed. Disease, hunger, and war were constant threats. Even the most basic tasks, finding clean water, preparing food, or simply staying safe, required effort and vigilance. Are you sure you'd be able to handle it? Would you have the skills, the resilience, and the courage to survive in a world so different from your own? Let's start with the basics. Take a look at your hands. No smartphone, no internet connection, no social media, no streaming videos, and definitely no video games. The gadgets and technology you rely on every day simply don't exist here. If you're used to asking your phone for directions or texting your friends, you're in for a rude awakening. In ancient Greece, communication was a slow and often unreliable process. Messages were delivered by hand, sometimes taking days or even weeks to reach their destination. There were no instant updates, no emails, and no way to call for help if you got lost. Travel too was a completely different experience. Forget about cars, trains, or airplanes. If you wanted to go somewhere, you walked, or if you were lucky, rode a donkey or a simple cart. Journeys that would take us minutes today could take hours, days, or even longer. And every trip came with its own risks. Rough roads, unpredictable weather, and the constant threat of bandits or wild animals. Daily life was a struggle for survival, with most people working from sunrise to sunset just to put food on the table. Hard labor was the norm, not the exception, and every member of the family had to contribute. The comforts and conveniences we take for granted today, hot showers, soft beds, clean running water, and even basic medical care, were unknown in this ancient world. Homes were simple, often just one or two rooms, with little protection from the elements. Cooking was done over open fires, and meals were simple, made from whatever ingredients were available. There were no supermarkets, no refrigerators, and no fast food. Every meal was the result of hard work, planning, and sometimes a little luck. Even something as simple as staying warm in winter or cool in summer was a daily challenge. So, before you get swept away by the romance of ancient history, prepare yourself for a reality check. Life in ancient Greece was harsh, demanding, and often unforgiving. But it was also a world of incredible resilience, creativity, and community. As we journey deeper into this ancient civilization, get ready to discover not just the struggles, but also the triumphs and innovations that shape the world we know today. Brace yourself, because we're about to explore the true realities of life in ancient Greece, where every day was an adventure and survival was the greatest challenge of all. Imagine stepping out of a time machine and finding yourself in the bustling streets of ancient Greece. One of the most startling realizations for any modern visitor would be the state of medicine at the time. While the ancient Greeks are often celebrated for their philosophy, art, and early scientific thought, their approach to health and healing was, by today's standards, shockingly primitive and fraught with danger. In our world today, we benefit from a vast array of medical advancements. Hospitals are equipped with sterile operating rooms, doctors have access to powerful antibiotics that can stop infections in their tracks, and vaccines protect us from diseases that once wiped out entire populations. If you get sick or injured, you can expect a team of trained professionals to diagnose and treat you using methods grounded in centuries of scientific research. But in ancient Greece, the reality was starkly different. Medical knowledge was limited, and much of it was based on superstition, tradition, and trial and error. The causes of most illnesses were mysterious, often attributed to imbalances in bodily fluids called humors, or even the displeasure of the gods. There were no antibiotics, no painkillers, and no understanding of germs or hygiene. As a result, even the most common illnesses, things we might consider minor today, could quickly become life-threatening. Take, for example, something as simple as a broken leg. In the modern world, you'd be rushed to a hospital where doctors would use X-rays to assess the damage, set the bone with precision, and immobilize it with a cast. You'd receive medication to manage pain and prevent infection, and you'd likely make a full recovery. In ancient Greece, however, the outcome would be far less certain. Without X-rays or proper surgical tools, healers had to rely on their senses and experience to set bones, often using wooden splints and rough bandages. There was no way to prevent infection, which could set in quickly and spread throughout the body. Even a minor wound could become a death sentence if it became infected, as there were no antibiotics to stop the spread of bacteria. Many people who suffered injuries or wounds simply did not survive, and those who did often lived with permanent disabilities. Childbirth was another perilous event. Today, expectant mothers are surrounded by skilled medical professionals and advanced technology that can monitor and address complications as they arise. In ancient Greece, childbirth was a time of great anxiety and risk. Midwives did their best with the knowledge and tools available, but complications like breech births, hemorrhages, or infections were often fatal for both mother and child. It was not uncommon for families to lose loved ones during what should have been a joyous occasion. When illness struck, many Greeks turned to a mix of remedies. Some sought help from local healers who used herbal concoctions, poultices, and sometimes even surgery with crude instruments. Others visited temples dedicated to Asclepius, the god of healing, hoping for divine intervention through prayers, offerings, and ritual purification. The line between medicine and religion was often blurred, and desperate patients would try anything in hopes of a cure. Despite these challenges, it's important to remember that ancient Greece did have some skilled healers and early physicians. Figures like Hippocrates began to lay the foundations for a more systematic approach to medicine, emphasizing careful observation and the importance of diet and lifestyle. However, their understanding of the human body and disease was still very limited compared to what we know today. The perils of ancient medicine remind us just how far we've come, and how much we owe to the generations who struggled, suffered, and slowly advanced the art of healing. Think our legal system is tough? In ancient Greece, justice was often swift and brutal. The punishments for crimes, even minor ones, could be extremely harsh by today's standards. Public humiliation was common, and exile was a frequent sentence. For serious offenses, the consequences could be terrifying. The death penalty was applied liberally, and the methods of execution were often gruesome. Imagine being thrown into a pit of snakes, stoned to death by a mob, or crucified. These were not uncommon punishments in ancient Greece. And forget about lawyers and fair trials as we know them. The legal system was often arbitrary and unforgiving. When we think of ancient Greece, one city-state stands out above all others for its legendary warrior culture, Sparta. The very name conjures images of bronze-clad soldiers, unwavering discipline, and a society built around the art of war. Unlike the philosophers and artists of Athens, the Spartans dedicated their entire way of life to military excellence. Every aspect of their society, from the way they raised their children to the laws they followed, was designed to create the ultimate fighting force. The story of Sparta is not just about battles and glory, but about a community that demanded total commitment from every citizen, forging a unique and often harsh way of life that has fascinated people for centuries. The Spartans were renowned throughout the ancient world for their discipline, their physical prowess, and their unmatched military might. Their soldiers, known as hoplites, trained relentlessly to perfect their skills with spear and shield. Marching in perfect unison, they moved as a single, unstoppable unit on the battlefield. This discipline was not just for show, it was the very foundation of Spartan power. Every man was expected to be a warrior, and every warrior was expected to be ready to lay down his life for the state. The famous phrase, "Come back with your shield, or on it," captured the Spartan attitude toward courage and sacrifice. But life in Spartan society was incredibly demanding, even from a young age. Childhood in Sparta was nothing like the carefree days we might imagine. From the moment they could walk, Spartan children were taught that their highest duty was to serve the state. Play was replaced by training and comfort was replaced by challenge. The entire community watched over the young, ensuring that every child grew up tough, resilient, and ready for the hardships ahead. At the age of 7, Spartan boys were taken from their families and placed into the Agoj, the state-run military training program. This was a rite of passage that marked the beginning of a lifelong journey of discipline and endurance. The boys lived in communal barracks, away from their parents, and were subjected to a strict regimen of physical training, survival skills, and obedience to authority. They learned to fight, to endure pain, and to rely on their fellow trainees as brothers in arms. The Agoj was designed to break the weak and forge the strong, ensuring that only the most capable would become full citizens of Sparta. The training was harsh and often brutal. Boys were encouraged to compete, to test their limits, and to accept hardship without complaint. They faced hunger, cold, and exhaustion, learning to survive with minimal resources. Discipline was enforced through strict rules and severe punishments. The goal was to create warriors who could withstand any hardship, who would never falter in the face of danger. The Agoj was not just about physical strength, it was about building character, loyalty, and an unbreakable will. Weakness was not tolerated in Sparta. Boys who could not keep up, who showed signs of frailty or disobedience, were often cast out or left behind. Only the strongest and most resilient survived the Spartan system, emerging as elite warriors ready to defend their city-state. This ruthless selection process was seen as necessary to maintain the strength and purity of the Spartan army. The community believed that only by demanding the best from every individual could they ensure the survival of their way of life. Even for girls, life in Sparta was focused on physical fitness and service to the state. Unlike in other Greek city-states, Spartan girls were encouraged to train their bodies, to run, to wrestle, and to compete in athletic contests. Their education emphasized strength, endurance, and self-discipline. The belief was that strong women would give birth to strong children, ensuring the future of Sparta's warrior society. Girls were taught to value courage and loyalty, and to take pride in their role as mothers of soldiers. Spartan women were expected to be as tough and resilient as the men. They managed households, owned property, and enjoyed a level of independence rare in the ancient world. But above all, they were expected to bear and raise strong children for the army. The ideal Spartan mother was one who could send her sons off to war with pride, knowing she had prepared them for the ultimate sacrifice. In this way, every member of Spartan society, male or female, was part of the military machine, a community united by discipline, strength, and an unyielding commitment to the state. One of the darkest aspects of ancient Greek society was its reliance on slavery. Slaves were a fundamental part of the economy and were used in all aspects of life, from agriculture and mining to domestic service, and even skilled labor. It's estimated that a significant portion of the population of ancient Greece were slaves, and their lives were ones of hardship and brutality. They had no rights, no freedom, and were considered property, not people. This widespread practice of slavery created a deeply unequal society, where the lives and well-being of a large segment of the population were disregarded.